Hello, it's us again, and we're talking again.
Professionally.
Good to be paid to do that. Anyway, this episode's kind of interesting because Tushar and I have decided we need to dissect the entire compact SUV segment for you.
Yeah, because the number of options is, frankly speaking, confusing even for us who live in and breathe in this entire automotive space. So I can't imagine how much of a trouble it might be for somebody who's just generally looking to buy some car in this segment. But here is our way of not going through with a full-fledged comparison review as we traditionally would. We will get that in place as and when we can get all the cars in place. But it's more of a context setting as to what car is going to meet what kind of need, and the fulcrum of this entire discussion is of course going to be the Honda Elevate, which we've already just driven. The first drive review / discussion ZigAnalysis is going to be live by the time you watch this. And without any further ado, I think we should begin. So what do we sort of benchmark or compare the Elevate with first?
To me, it has to be the Korean Jodi. Has to be the Hyundai Creta, the Kia Seltos. Purely because segment favorites.
Yeah.
And the first thing that pops up in Google, if you type Honda Elevate, is versus Hyundai Creta. So let's begin there. Versus the Creta, what do you think, or where rather, you think the Elevate scores?
I think off the top of my head, if I were generally looking at this segment, for me the first thing is the Creta has become quite commonplace now. Because the car was revealed at the previous Auto Expo.
Yeah.
It's been around for a long time, and even after all the discussion of polarizing design, why the old Creta look better, God only knows how many comments we saw. Fact of the matter is, this thing has been sold, and how it is still one of the flag bearers for diesel engines being popular, because I think both for the Creta and Seltos, 40-45% of the demand is from the diesel still going. So for me, first thing is that if I were to choose the Elevate over the Creta, is for the rarity of it. It's a newer car. And of course, there is that brand element of Honda. A lot more people find Honda to have a slightly more premium appeal. I would say it's the more South Bombay friendly brand also. A lot of people do prefer that. And it has a certain classy appeal to it that may not necessarily be the case with the Creta. That is my number one reason. The second reason why I would choose the Elevate based on my experience with it is the interior quality of the car. It does look and feel notably more premium, and that is down to small little things like the plastic quality, the consistency of the plastic quality, and also like the stitching of the leatherette bits that they have used. Not to mention, it's more generous in the application of them as well.
Right. For me, space, rear seat space, if I'm looking to be chauffeur driven, I would pick the Elevate over the Creta. Second, I kind of value ADAS more over a panoramic sunroof and ventilated seats. And if I had to choose between the 1.5 NA of the Creta versus the 1.5 NA of the Honda Elevate, I would tilt in favor of the Elevate for now.
Why is that?
I think it's a little smoother, and the manual's a little better in my opinion. But if I wanted diesel, if I wanted the pano sunroof, if I wanted the ventilated seats,
Turbo petrol
is not available with the Creta anymore. Right, I think that'll come with the facelift. If you want a turbo petrol Creta, just buy the Seltos. If I wanted diesel, I'd still pick the Creta. Right, so that is the Creta out of the way. Next is the Seltos, something that I drove very recently in very rainy Nagpur.
Yeah, and you'd have the better perspective with the Seltos.
Right. Okay, first things first, do not make the mistake of comparing the Elevate ZX to the Seltos GTX Plus. That's just unfair to the Elevate. What you should be comparing it is the Seltos HTX or the HTX Plus. HTX more so because it's the only variant that gets the CVT, right? There you're getting a pano sunroof and you're getting an air purifier. Everything else the Elevate has. You move up to the HTX Plus, there are a few more features like the dual screens and all of that, but the Elevate isn't really going to be leaving you wanting for features, right?
I think one place where it will also have an edge, both with the context of the Creta and the Seltos, is that the petrol auto combination is going to be a lot more easily accessible because Honda is going to be offering that from the one above base variant itself.
Yeah.
So for people who just want a city friendly car that's got an automatic, that is a big requirement now. Vast majority of the cars in this segment are being sold for the automatic.
Yeah.
So that is going to be one major reason, both in the context of the Creta and the Seltos both.
Right. And again, compared to the Seltos, more space in the Elevate.
Boot space compared to both of them.
Boot space compared to both of them is phenomenal. And I want to assume better safety for the Elevate. Both of them haven't been crash tested. Both of them have 6 airbags. Both of them have level 2 ADAS. The Seltos is ADAS is better than the Elevate's ADAS. But city platform proven 5-star ASEAN NCAP versus a platform that scored 3 stars in the global NCAP. So I have more reason to believe that the Elevate should do better.
Correct.
Right. If I want fun, if I want a turbo petrol, if I want diesel, if I want those next level features and I'm willing to pay for it, Seltos is the way to go. You can't really fault it for features.
I'd put it this way, if you're trying to give a sort of broad encompassing perspective at these two cars. If you're looking to buy a compact SUV, but primarily you'll be driving it yourself.
Yeah.
And for that reason, you'd want to invest more into features rather than stuff like boot space or rear seat space outright.
Yeah.
But it's more of a sort of an additional bonus for when you need it. In that context, a Creta or a Seltos will probably be more appealing to you.
Yeah.
But if you're someone who's frequently going to be using the rear seat, you don't want a confusing array of features, you don't really believe in gimmicks, and you have that clarity that, you know what, a lot of this stuff looks good on the brochure, but I don't really feel like I'm going to derive value out of them 1.5, 2 years down the line.
Yeah.
Something like an Elevate will probably make more sense for you.
Right. So that's the Korean twins out and Japanese twins in.
Yes.
Mr. Grand Vitara Alpha Plus Hybrid.
You call me everything but Tushar, right? Mr. 6'5", Mr. Grand Vitara.
Well,
Okay.
हरकतें ऐसी करता है तू.
So, I think it's important, there's a very direct comparison between the three of them because fundamentally they're all first Japanese brands. So the whole question of reliability, dependability, all of those values that we associate more so with Japanese brands than any other, they're on equal standing on that front. I like to believe that. Again, in this place also, the comparison is not going to be with the hybrid.
Yeah, it cannot be with the Alpha Plus.
Or the Zeta Plus also in terms of how much more of a cost increment is going to be there with that. And with the hybrids, a lot of the halo features like the heads-up display, the ventilated seats,
The 360-degree camera.
yeah, I think these three features are only going to be there with the hybrid. The panoramic sunroof, you do get it with the non-hybrid as well. But if you were to ask me which one would I choose between the NA 1.5 versions of the Hyryder or Grand Vitara versus a comparable Elevate, the Elevate starts making an extremely strong case over there because the interior quality is better. The rear seat space, at least, is better.
The boot space is better.
The entire experience inside the cabin is also better.
Yeah.
And on the infotainment front, I think they're more or less on par.
Yeah. Because the non-hybrid versions of the Grand Vitara don't get the Clarion audio system that the hybrid does.
Yeah.
The audio system on the Elevate, it is an 8-speaker setup, but it's all right. Touchscreen interface, usability, I think both of them are quite close. Both of them get wireless Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, so you won't really be complaining on that front. In terms of safety, again, Elevate has an edge because it does have ADAS. But the rest of the feature matrix is pretty much the same. All three of them rather get 6 airbags, ABS with EBD, ISOFIX, all of that.
I'd also say that the petrol auto combination is going to be smoother and more polished with the Elevate. Because the 6-speed auto 1.5 combination
That is
in
a
the
top
Grand Vitara,
converter.
it does, I mean, both of them are not exceptionally great in terms of performance, right? Or both
They're
of them
not
are
exciting.
Yeah, and if it's not going to be about excitement, then the obvious tilt is going to be towards smoothness, the polished feel of how the car drives. On that front, fundamentally because of the CVT, especially if you're looking at urban driving competence, on that front, the Hyundai Elevate does have an edge. So I feel like if you're talking about the entirety of the segment, the Elevate's most direct targets are from its own home country.
Exactly. And what the Toyota and the Maruti Suzuki have unique to them are in terms of the powertrain options, right? The hybrid, you will never miss a diesel, Mr. 1000 kilometers on a full tank.
Without hypermiling.
Without hypermiling. That is possible. Hybrids, a huge driving factor for anyone who wants mileage in today's scenario where there's slight bit of uncertainty over diesels. I would choose a hybrid over a diesel. And the second unique powertrain option that you get is all-wheel drive. Not necessarily something that applies to everyone, even though Mumbai roads will make you want all-wheel drive every now and then. But that is an option that at least Maruti, Suzuki and Toyota are giving you, right? That
And I think there's one more sort of intangible that comes into play here, and there is a possibility that, let's say you prefer Toyota as the brand compared to Maruti Suzuki. The waiting period over there for the car is quite long.
yeah.
And if you do want the NA option, in any case, over the preference is going to be there for Maruti Suzuki. But if brand value does count for you, you can probably look at the Elevate and get delivery quicker.
Possibly, and if you're wondering, if you're deciding between these Japanese SUVs, you're wondering which one's more comfortable in terms of ride. All of them are pretty much the same. They're not really fun or exciting in any way, but they just get the job done.
But since we're on the subject of fun and exciting, that is one place where the Volkswagen Taigun and Skoda Kushaq have got the ultimate edge in the segment.
Okay, first, because where every other rival has a 1.5 NA as the base, Skoda Volkswagen said, why not put a turbo in it? A 1 liter turbo that makes just as much power, more torque, has a brilliant 6-speed auto, right? And then the step up from that is a sillier 1.5 TSI with a 7-speed DSG. So if on your priority list, Masti is number 1, Taigun, Kushaq need to be on your list. And I know the Seltos technically makes more power. It might just be quicker in a straight line. We've seen it in the Verna versus Virtus shootout. Hyundai VW fanboys comment section jhagdo. But I will still pick the Taigun or the Kushaq for that matter, because it just feels a lot more involving to drive. And even versus the Elevate in this case, since we're using the Elevate as a fulcrum, I think that aspect of just wanting to drive it, that the Elevate kind of misses out on, and the Taigun Kushaq makes me want to drive it more.
Absolutely, I'd agree, because like we said, even with the comparison with the 1 liter versus the 1.5, the upgrade to the 1.5 was a question of wanting it, not needing it.
Yeah.
But now that we are bringing the Elevate into the picture, there is one very distinct advantage, and that is the smoothness of the drive experience. Because the 1 liter turbo is not as smooth even with the automatic transmission in this power delivery. Especially in city traffic, a lot of people find that turbos, especially these low displacement turbos, they do have notable lag. When it kicks in, there's a certain surge in performance.
Yeah, it's
and that is something that's certainly a drive nature that a lot of people can get used to, but not everyone wants to. And on that front, organically speaking, if you were to get behind the wheel of an Elevate, driving it in the city would be a lot more natural to pick up on. In fact, you just get comfortable with a lot sooner.
Right.
And would also give the Elevate an edge with ride comfort. It does feel better when it comes to bump absorption, whereas the VW Skoda twins are obviously tilted a little bit more towards being more engaging from a driver's perspective.
Right.
And of course, the benefit of better boot space, they're going to be actually quite close together.
Quite close, because we've learned that German 385 liter is greater than Korean 433 liters.
Yeah, different measurements.
Right. And Japanese 485 liter is some next level.
And Japanese quality in this context, interior fit and finish quality.
Actually, those would be my 2 reasons why I'd pick the Elevate over the Taigun Kushaq. Better interior quality throughout, more consistent interior quality. And second would be, I think, the sheer sense of space that the car brings, because it's also a physically larger car. Inside the cabin, knee room won't really be all that different. Both of them are 4-seaters in my book, all 3 of them actually. Are 4-seaters in my book, but if I had to squeeze in 5 people, I'd pick the Elevate over the Taigun or the Kushaq.
And in the context of safety, obviously the most proven products in this segment are them 5 full stars for child occupant safety as well as adult occupant safety. With the Elevate, I think we can go out on a whim and say it's a question of how close is it going to get to these twins.
Yeah, because the thing with the Taigun and the Kushaq, or this MQB A0AN platform in general, is that it's proven not only by the global NCAP, but Latin NCAP has also given it its stamp of approval. Not the easiest thing to do. And those cars are made in India. The only difference is that those Latin spec cars get ADAS, and I think it's a matter of time before Skoda VW says, just put it in the Indian spec as well. So that is an edge that the Elevate currently has over the Taigun and the Kushaq. It's got ADAS. The VW Skoda twin does not, but I don't think that's going to sway the buying decision
for most people at least.
Right?
But since we are on ADAS, we have to talk about the first car that was the one that brought it into the segment, which was the MG Astor.
Tell me this: do you feel bad that the Astor could not build on that advantage it had? Because it's doing triple-digit sales and frankly doesn't deserve it. It's quite a competent car. It deserves more, I think.
So the issue there becomes that ADAS is still not that commonplace that it's become one of those common parlance features that everyone is expecting.
Yeah.
Even me myself, yes, I would like my car to have ADAS, but honestly speaking, it's not that much of a deciding factor for me yet. Especially because so many of the ADAS features that are offered become a little bit more highway biased for a lot of people.
Yeah.
In my context, yes, it would apply, but the execution of ADAS is also sort of inconsistent.
Yeah.
Some cars get it bang on, other cars a little bit jerky, and other cars at the extreme end, they actually become counterproductive because they aren't India friendly enough.
Yeah.
So that becomes a sort of hesitation for a lot of people, and not a place that most people would be willing to spend an extra $1.5 lakh or 2 lakh
just for that.
Just for that. If you package lock it into something else that they want, then it's like, okay, fine, I might as well reap the benefits of it. And with the Astor, I think the number one drawback it has generally in the segment is that it is a 4.3 meter car in that territory. But the cabin space is not matching up to that.
No, it's not. The cabin space is not matching up to that. The boot space is not matching up to that. But where it really trumps the Elevate, I think, is in terms of interior quality. The Elevate is great. The Astor has no business being as good as it is.
Yeah.
Proper soft touch material on top of the dash, on the door pads. It's genuinely good. It's got practically every feature that you'd want from a car in this space. Except for that annoying robot on the dash. I don't really need that. But much like the Elevate, it's very comfortable. It's very laid back in its nature. Right? So if comfort is a priority, if you're going to be driven solo or with another passenger at best, you can pick and choose between either. But one edge that I want to give the Elevate over the Astor is of perceived reliability.
Yeah.
Because Japanese 1.5 liter iVTEC that we've seen for the past decade, you might say Honda just give us a new engine, it's been forever, but it stayed alive forever. That's a huge deal.
Yeah, there is that additional layer of blind support or blind recommendability. What is the word?
Inventing words.
How do you English?
Mr. Invent words.
But this is the thing I was discussing with you on the way over here as well, right? Say for example, if I was an NRI, I lived in the Middle East, the US somewhere, and my dad asked me, who's now 70 years old, 65, 70 years old, and he's like, I want to decide what car to buy. Now I know that this is not a person who's going to be very enthused by a lot of technical features and all, because I still have to explain to him how to use Facebook. So that kind of person is not going to want like some vast list of gimmicks to play around with, because they have no interest and they might actually find it to be daunting because basic things are sort of catching them off guard.
Correct.
And secondly, basic warnings that show up on these cars can catch people who are not car people off guard. Right. You don't want a certain warning coming up. Might be flashing sometime, going off, but can make some people panic.
Correct.
These are the kind of intangibles that a Honda will deliver on, because I owned a Honda for 11 years. Outside of changing the battery and upgrading my tires, I had to do nothing with that car. When it hit 1 lakh kilometers, I finally had to change my O2 sensor and I got a warning for that. That is the kind of bulletproof reliability and blind trust you can put into an Elevate. That is not necessarily going to be the case with any of the other cars in this segment, save for maybe the Maruti Suzuki and the Toyota.
Right. So overall, this is how the segment looks. Of course, Tushar and I will try and get all these rivals and us fit into one single frame and talk about it in a lot more detail. But if you were hunting for your next family SUV, you'd shortlisted this, you just wanted a quick snapshot of, hey, what brings what to the table, you now have it, because Tushar and I decided to ramble on for God knows how many minutes.
How long has it been now, Kamesh? How many minutes?
20 minutes.
Oh my god.
Wow, we can talk.
So anyway, that is the broad picture of the entire segment. Do let us know if you found this video useful, if you'd like us to do more videos of this nature, both with the first drives, the comparisons, what kind of things would you like to see additionally brought into discussions like this. Go ahead and let us know in the comment section below. Like, share, subscribe, and follow us on Instagram as well.
We'll see you in the next one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.